And this is ready to go. Okay. Do I have to turn anything on? Okay. We are ready. Okay. Good evening and welcome, folks. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to come out here in this extreme cold. No, it is really cold. I am actually worried that some of our close friends are probably freezing right now. And, you know, they may end up in hospitals. Who knows? I hope that doesn't happen. But I'm here to introduce my beloved friend, Syed Afzal Haider, whose work I have followed for a very long time and helped publish also. Uh, we got to know each other some 20, 30 years ago uh, as a wonderful woman based in Karachi was putting together 50 years of Pakistani writing in English. So it's kind of a racket, but we got into it, anthologized. It's a little, a little perk on your shoulder kind of thing. And since then, we have gotten to know each other and learn from each other. I look up to him as my elder brother, and our families know each other, more and more and more. And we have met many times. We have common friends at this point. One of them is sitting right next door. She's like a comrade in arms, sister, inspiration, and inspiration for many reasons. As some of you know, I've started a new literary magazine dedicated to South Asian American writing, and these two people are my foremost inspiration. And I don't know what else I can say. Uh, tonight we're here uh, for Syed Afzal Haider, uh, reading from his first collection of short stories. He has two novels already out, To Be With Her and Life of Ganesh. Wonderful works. I think he's one of the most underrated South Asian American writers. And maybe someday somebody will write a good literary critique and catapult him to some semblance of decent fame. These things happen. Kafka was forgotten. So was, the Moby Dick guy. He was forgotten. Herman Melville. My brain is just going very soft. Anyway, so without wasting too much time, the model tonight is that we're gonna request Saeed Afzal Haider. So a little bit bio is, I think, it's essential. Saeed was born in India, and at a very young age, while his elder brother was buried in India, the family had to move to Pakistan due to partition. And this is the trauma generations are still carrying on both sides of the border in one way or another. But he was the direct, witness, seeing the uprootedness, leaving some friends behind, dead siblings behind, and arriving in Karachi and making it to teenage. At a very young age, he left for the US on a ship. This is the time, early 50s, mid 50s, I can't remember exactly. Uh, and his first novel really captures that transition very well. And the losses and gains that accompany you when you move, thinking that you're going to go back and build bridges and you're going to help your nation, but life has a lot of surprises in store for you. Many don't go back, not just because they're making more money, it's just because your life just takes unexpected turn. You fall in love, you end up in jail, you become a drug addict, whatever. I mean, I work at the library and I see these things, and I look at their stories. I wonder why this person is here. When I look back at my own life, I really had no economic reasons to move here. So there are a lot of psychological things at play, and the influences we carry through Hollywood movies or early British education and class divisions and whatnot. Uh, his short stories are very much rooted in his own predicament, his own traumas, his own longings sprouting on this soil, even though some of the stories do travel back and forth. but it is really a Chicago person, even though he arrived in Oklahoma, but very soon he moved to Chicago. And very few people I know, I think myself, I'm a very rooted person. I never meant to leave San Francisco. Once I arrived here in Berkeley area, moved to San Francisco within a year. I had no desire to move anywhere unless there was a strong reason. I did have strong reasons, but somehow I was lucky enough to stay put in San Francisco. I had this location and all that, uh, but I had some very good friends. I've been very blessed and lucky with friends. And I think Saeed is that way too. He has a very good set of writerly friends. You know, other things probably helped out. Just a stroke of good luck. I mean, I used to make a joke when I was coming to America. Hey, I did get I-20s from two different places. One was Berkeley, a fake school. I told Joan a few times, and Oklahoma Norman. Can you imagine getting stuck in Oklahoma Norman for the rest of your life? I can't even imagine. But coming to the U.S., you don't know the difference between Oklahoma Norman and California Berkeley. To them, to you, these are the same things. America, you're going to America. I had cousins who were going there for engineering school, and they've told me some horrible stories. But anyway, you were smart. You left for Chicago, and you've been there. Chicago runs through the heart of his short stories. So does baseball. So does the 60s and 70s. So does desire and sex. And above all, a sense of loss. That's the title story of that's one of my favorite short stories. Not just his, but overall what South Asian American writers have produced. I would say I would put that particular short story among the top 10 or 20 favorite short stories. It's very delicate, it's very nuanced, it's very personal. Uh, you just have to kind of appreciate how a decent writer processes a sense of loss. And with that, I invite my friend, my brother, Syed Afzal Haider, to the podium. The mic is right here. He's going to do a very short reading from two different short stories, I suppose. And then Elizabeth McKenzie and I will grill him.
I think I would prefer sitting. I'm just don't want to create a drama here by falling down or whatever.
A decent place. I think it's not going to need to be real close to you, but let's make sure it's close enough.
You have your copy with you?
Oh, thank you, Moazzam.
He already forgot his copy in Chicago.
I came very well prepared, and I was talking to my son.
Do you need this at all?
Not really.
Then let's get it out.
Yeah.
And then let me go back and make sure that.
And I'm gonna buy it. Yeah.
Let me make sure the volume is coming across.
Moazzam, could you mind just pouring a little bit of wine here so I'll have something
You
to
want a little wine or water?
water. Oh, my.
You want water or wine?
Water. That's my glass anyway, but
No, it's okay.
you're supposed to be drinking some water or something when you're talking to people. That's the rule. To give you a pause to get away, collect your thought, and restart again. It's. Shall I just start? I think this is it, right?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
First, a short digression. This poet was going to go. I already told this kind of story before. So he was in India, Pakistan. The poetry is a big deal thing. Mashairas, and I'm starting in the middle. I'm sorry, but I'll come back to beginning. Mashaira is a gathering of poets to recite poetry, and they take turns and do that. So this one poet was started, and there was only 4 or 5 people in the audience, and he was very happy that there's people came at least to listen to his poetry. So he thanked them. He said, "I'm very glad you made time to come to my reading." And one of the audience members said, "Thank you. We are going to be the next poets to read at this occasion." So they were all poets. They were just trying to express or read their poetry. So I think that we are among all the writers. So you guys are welcome to join. And I would not take it personally.
No, this is your evening. You should.
No,
This is sagging a bit.
no, don't worry about it.
But I don't want it to end up amplifying your feet, you know. Next thing you know, we will be hearing a tapping of feet. Okay. That should be better.
And now for the beginning, I have to thank the bird and the bees. I know it's not, it's Bird and Beckett, right? But I could not help that. It's a bad joke, but I'm master of bad jokes. I may do more of those, but I hope not. So here we are. I feel it to be privileged to be with friends, and the introduction, Moazzam, I hope I could be anywhere near the praise and love that I feel from my friend Lisa McKenzie here, Elizabeth McKenzie, as we know her in writerly world, and my friend Moazzam. And with time, I'm beginning to get to know Amna Ali. So I'm in good company. Thank you both, and all those I just met today, and hopefully we could keep up with it. Writing to me is what I believe John Fowle has said whenever he was writing, and he's one of my favorite writers. Albert Camus and John Fowles, Bernard Malamud, Margaret Drabble. These were the writers I knew when I was growing up. Not growing up, still fast track. I came to America to go to school in Fort Wayne, Indiana, to be an electrical engineer. And then I learned that you can go to from Fort Wayne, you can go to Oklahoma State. They would give you some kind of fellowship. Not that I was never a good student, especially I just have this vain idea that I could be an electrical engineer because I was good in math and sciences. But that does not make you an engineer at all. So I did go to school briefly in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And it was a perfectly nice city, and it was okay, but it was small. And somebody asked me, why did he came to Fort Wayne, Indiana? Why Indiana? And I said, that's the only school that accepted me. So why would I not go to, I got an I-20 student visa to arrive in America. So that's how I end up. And then I had the stupidness. I think I was young and kind of crazy. So I decided to go to from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I went to Oklahoma, Stillwater, which is not smaller and more whatever town than Norman. Moazzam didn't want to go to Norman. Norman has Oklahoma State University, and Stillwater has Oklahoma State University, which those of you who have grown up in America know. The state university are a state lower than the University of Illinois. And in a similar way, I went to University of Illinois, but in Chicago, which is not the Urbana campus. So I'm always gone to second-rate, third-rate school. And they got tired of me being a student. So first I got a double E degree from American Institute of Engineering, whatever it was. I forgot that, but no, I don't forget. I have a diploma somewhere to prove that I went to school and I have a double E. And I did work in the field for. Why am I talking my life? I mean, we should talk about the book. Uh, enough about read. Oh, I'm a poor reader. I was going to read could something else, but anyway, since it's supposed to be a book reading, I should do it's something to read. And you should not want me to read. I'm a very poor reader, but here I go. I'm reading first from the title, which is according to Moazzam. But this is not the first. You said the Paraline, which is not in here, another story that you even used once upon a time, at least that's what you told me. Somebody, when you were teaching, you still are teaching, and you said that story I use for teaching, and you did not even include this in that its collection. Moazzam, you're my brother. I'm not. No, this is not a grab stage. I'm not. It's a joke, I think. Oh my. Okay. What am I reading? Okay, I'm reading the title story, The Dying Sun, and I'll just read the end. What I learned, if you're giving a reading, either read the first paragraph, because there's introduction to the story, and that's where the story is being said. So it's important that you can read a short paragraph and people may get engaged with the story. And the rule of the writing is that your first paragraph, first line supposed to hit the reader so he or she will read the rest of the story. So I'm not going to read the beginning of it. I'll read the ending of it. Okay. I drive. Lee is a friend in this story who came from Berkeley, California, and visited me in Chicago. But so this is the ending of that story. I drive Lee to the airport, not Lee. No, that's his real name. My friend is here. He's a real person, but instead of calling him Lee, he lives in Berkeley, and he was going to be here, but he's in Japan, so he couldn't come. So I changed the name a little bit and call him Les, so nobody would know. And his last name is Balance. That's a perfect name to use in a story. Les Balance is your name, and he's your best friend in those days, and he still is. So he came to Chicago and visited me, and I'm just reading. I have an infant son in those days who was obsessed the son was dying. So it's not S-O-N, son dying, but it's S-U-N, son dying. He was in those kind of books, a space book and planets and all that. And once he read somewhere, or maybe one of the stories I was reading him, and I think it's mentioned, the numbers are mentioned, in so many million years, the sun would die. And he was very unhappy with the thought, the sun. And my friend Les, in the story, who came, he said, don't worry, we'll all be dead by the time the sun dies, so don't worry about it. And it didn't calm the young child that so many million years, he didn't have any concept. He was like 7, 5, I don't know how old he was. So now he's leaving, and I drive Les to the airport. Adam comes along for the ride. Sitting in the back seat, Adam asks Les, are you sad that you are leaving? I'm going to miss you, Les replies. I think Les did not answer the question. On the way back from the airport, Adam says he's sad. He sobs, and most of the way back. When I was a little boy, I said, trying to comfort him, every time somebody left, I thought I would never see that person again. I still feel that way, but I know better. But you saw them again, says Adam. Yes, I say, looking at the distant evening sun. Why did you feel that way? I don't know, I say. Feelings are hard to explain. Besides, there are few explanations to our whys. I know, he says, quietly looking away, the pale yellow sun in the setting sun sky. I'm sad that sun is going to die one day, he says. Yeah, I say absently. The thought of dying sun bothers me. That's the end of this story, and I'll read another story or short of piece. Story collections are hard. If you're trying to read a novel, an excerpt from a novel, I'm already putting Moazzam to sleep, but that's okay. Somebody has to sleep. Sorry, Moazzam. So you can read something and you can possibly sell the book. But how can you sell a collection of a story? You have to read something from every story to say this really is a good collection. And Moazzam is right, it's a very good collection. All right, now there's another story, short story. Which one is that? I did all this marking today because I forgot the book I was brought and marked up that I was going to read. So bear with me. I think, okay, this is a very short story in the collection, Blind Date. And I'll read the end of this story as well. The endings are easy to read. And don't mind my not able to read properly, and it's my own writing. Believe me, I wrote these, but I cannot read them. What do you do? Could have somebody is a better reader here, they can read my story. Oh, God. Okay, this is a blind date, and it's the end of the evening of the date. And this is how I was supposed to kiss her at this time, and I wanted to kiss her, like Burt Lancaster kissed Deborah in From Here to Eternity. I wanted to hold her right in my arms, but if I kissed her once, I want to kiss her again. If I kiss her again, I would want to see her again. If I was able to. She's a serious kind with thin lips. I should have kissed her, but I did not. She squeezed my arm one more time, then she let go. From the black leather handbag she was holding in her hand, she took out an old train schedule. Looking at the train, squinting her eyes in the street light, she said, if we walk a bit briskly, I could make the next train to Lansing. Lansing is a suburb of Chicago. At the train station, just at 9:50, pulled in. She took off my jacket. It was a cold night. I gave her my jacket that men's supposed to give a woman, and so she was very. She held out my jacket and helped me put it on. She gave me a light kiss, hug, holding me tenderly in the moment. She said quietly, I know you are not going to call me again, but I had a good time. She kissed me gently on the lips and got on her train. I stood there on the platform until the two yellow lights on the moving train seemed into one yellow hue, smelling an unfamiliar fragrance on my old jacket. I thought of my first Lithuanian, Eloina, who did not even get to know my name. The beginning is that a friend, it was his date, and he asked me if I would take his date out. So I pretended to be somebody else all the evening because she thought I was Sal, and I was not Sal. I was whoever I am. But I could not tell her that, you're dating with the wrong person. And so, anyway, that's the end of these stories. And I think Papa, it would be better we talk than. I don't think you'll be wasting your time listening to me read. So, here I am. Whatever you want to say or do, I'm all yours. So, yes,
I have a request.
yes, please.
Too pertinent. I personally would like to hear the beginning of a story.
Oh my God.
Is that too pushy?
No, 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 no. That's why you do the reading. You have to respect the audience, not.
A little bit. I just want to see like the first sentences. Like,
Yeah, no, those are very important. That's what I've been told. There are few story of the character named Adam, and who is disguised as my son. I don't have a son named Adam, but I have two sons, and this possibly is. Today is the first day of the school, half a day. I wake up with a dream of my mother. I get out of the bed, shower, and put on a clean jeans. I pick up the paper from the front door of the house. The White Sox lost again last night. I sit in the kitchen reading the morning paper, drinking coffee. I'm on my second cup of coffee when I heard Adam call my name from his room. I go upstairs. He's still in the bed under his Marimekko quilt with cars all over it. I don't want to go to school, he says. He looks nice and rested. I don't want you to go either, but I say, feeling the loneliness. I take his gray wide veil, corduroy pants, and a blue Oxford t-shirt out and in the closet. Oh, goody, he says, I don't have to go to school. He covers his face under the quilt. What you want to do is do, and what you need to do are two different things, young man. And the story goes on. And if you want, let me read one more opening. This one will be hard to read, the first paragraph, the bottom. My stories, as Moazzam said, they're either football or losses. And this one is a baseball story. In the bottom of the pitcher died. And I think those of us who have any sense of baseball would know the pain. Anyway, but I'm not going to read. I can read the title. That sometimes tells a lot about the story. But maybe I'll read it. I just want to be rescued. Ask question, don't ask me to read. Okay. What are some of these stories are a little risky. You don't want to read in public. And as the Moazzam said, they're kind of full of sex. Not X-rated, but pretty much verge on that. So I'm not going to read any sexy thing. Oh, this is really a good story. From Brooklyn to Karachi via Amsterdam. I'm like one trick penny. This is a pony, not penny. this story has been published at least 4 or 5 times in different anthologies. It's starred in Pakistani colleges and it's in a textbook in London. So that's my fame to claim. And my great uncle, Syed Afzal Haider Yildirim, was a scholar. He brought the story writing, Urdu, the language we spoke in India, Pakistan, which was in India, is Urdu, which was not a written language. It was a language of the soldiers that mixed up with different languages, and the Urdu was born. This great uncle, his daughter was a very famous writer, Qurratul Ain Haider, who may have read. She was a good writer, and she's published and translated all over. But this poor guy, my great uncle, only has one story published, and it was in all the textbooks in Urdu literature. And he's the one who sort of brought story writing in India. Or in those days, there was no Pakistan; it was only India. He was fluent in Turkish, Persian, Farsi, Arabic, English. He was a scholar. He studied. So he was a very influential. I never met him. He was my father's uncle, so he was my great uncle. And so but I met his daughter, who was my auntie. In the relationships in India continue. The second generation. They're not second cousin. They're still your auntie. So I was very fond of. She was a beautiful woman when she was young, and I was much younger, and I have mad crush on her. And after she was a rebellion, she came to Pakistan like my family came, and what she wrote, there was a lot of censor in Pakistan in those days. Manto was victim of that censor. He was a very good writer. I love his writing. He's another Indian writer who was translated. So the poor woman left in Pakistan and went to India. And I thought of her all the time. Not all the time, but I would read her novels in Urdu and say, oh, she was so lovely, and I wish she was here. So when she got much older, and I got much older myself, I went to India for a visit, and she was famous enough that I could find her phone number through friends and connection. So I called her, and I said, Auntie, this is Afzal. And she said, oh, you're Ishaq Bhai's son? That's my father. And she was my father's first cousin. So, and I said, yeah. And I said, I'm in Delhi. She was very respectable, has a very nice house and servants and all that. She never married. So she said, what are you doing today? And I said, oh, I'm with my family. And she said, come on over for dinner. Bring your family. And I said, my family is a very mixed family. I married twice or whenever, but it was always not a Pakistani or Indian woman. So I said, yeah, I don't know if my wife, but let me find out. She said, I can send you a driver to pick you up, but it was a Sunday, and she said, I have to let him go. So come, if you're coming back for dinner, you have to find a taxi, and taxis are very hard to find the part of the city she lived. She said, you can call. So there are two ways. You can get a taxi from there and don't pay the taxi driver and tell him that you'll be back in few hours, and he will wait because you didn't pay him the fare, and then you'll have a taxi back, but you have to pay him generously. Or I can send the driver, but then you have to be on your own to find a taxi. So I took the second advice, that I'll pay extra. I was living in America. The few rupees this way or that way didn't matter. I mean, it's still. So I took this driver, And when he said, I won't find a fare coming back where we are going. And I said, don't worry, I'll take care of you. So I got there and I didn't pay. And he said, sir, you are not paying me. And I said, just wait, I'm going to have dinner with my auntie, and when I come back, I'll pay you enough. And so I went and had dinner, and I came back, and there was a taxi waiting for me. And then my auntie said, why are you making sit there? Call him, he can eat with us. Then I called him. He happened to be Indian Sikh, and he didn't want to eat with us. He said, no, thank you. I'm happy. Just come down when you're ready, and I'm happy. So that's my auntie's story, and I always admire her writing. I can never write. She wrote in English, she wrote in Urdu. Mostly she's famous for her Urdu writing, but she got translated. And I tried to read her, and I liked her work much better when I was reading in Urdu. Unfortunately, with time, I cannot read Urdu as fluently that I can read English. So those stories are lost. I have novels, and I every so often read it just to see if I can still read Urdu, but it's not working. I think I took too much time. Please talk and ask questions. And so
I thought you were actually going to read from the story.
I read 2 stories, sir.
Yeah. You got distracted. You were going to read the opening of one of the stories, the Amsterdam one.
Oh, right.
Read a paragraph or two, then Elizabeth and I can ask you some questions.
Okay. My cousin Azra, this is the opening of from Brooklyn to Karachi by Amsterdam. My cousin Azra, who lives in a basement apartment in Manhattan, gave me a contraption for catching a mice. It was a cardboard box that, when folded in a prescribed method, assembled in a miniature igloo with a entrance. Inside, the bottom was covered with a thick, sticky glue, like a substance that shone like a glossy polyurethane on a dark oak floor. Rather than the one in the dining room of my own house, I used that trap to catch a mouse. I found the mouse still alive, anchored in the shiny floor, just out of reach of the bit of the bread I used for the bait. It made desperate chirping sounds as it craned its neck forward, trying to reach the bread. I did not like this method of entrapment. Alive and stuck, nourishment inside, just out of reach. I put the igloo in a white plastic paper bag, not from the Lucky grocery store, tied it with a green wire twist, and dropped it in the garbage can outside my house. I wonder how long it would take for mouse to suffocate. They did not collect garbage until Thursday on my block, and it was only Monday. Is that enough? Did anybody even understand what I was reading? So, no, I don't mean, I'm grateful that you're all here, but I don't want to be totally boring and disconnected. Thank you.
Pass this mic to your compatriots here.
Thank you.
So if you all want to
Did I thank you guys enough? And especially the bookstore?
unmute it, you did. Thank you so very much.
No, thank yous.
All right, well, for Syed.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer some questions?
Yes, whatever. I
I-
mean, I would rather talk than read. Thank you. You can ask all the question. I may not answer because I don't know the answer or I'm avoiding the answer. But I won't mind talking.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You introduced me to this concept of the lost domain, and I often. Yeah, is it on? Is this working? Yeah, better.
Now it's better.
You introduced me to the concept of the lost domain, and I, often reference that when I'm talking to students or, talking about writing with people. And I was just wondering if you could talk about what that meant to you and how it affects your work.
The concept of lost domain to me or anybody, I would like to think, is something that's gone. And I really agree with Fowles that writing comes from that is what's gone. I mean, not every writer has to agree to that concept, but to me, not by plan, but all I could think of all the losses I have. I'm leaving from India to Pakistan, leaving Pakistan, not marrying the woman I was supposed to marry, and it was my choice, but nevertheless, I'm the one who betrayed somebody who was waiting for me because my mother thought she will make a good wife, and at the time I was too young to think any better, and I thought, yeah, she's a pretty woman, and maybe we'll make a good couple. So I said, yeah, go ahead, approach her family, and then I left for America. And the reason I think my family wanted to do that is that they didn't want me to get corrupted in America. The woman in America was supposed to be very easy and loose. I don't know if that's true or not, but it didn't work. I end up getting stuck in American ways and lost my whatever domain. So there's India to Pakistan, all the betrayal I did to this poor woman that I should have never agreed to marry and then not marry, and then poor woman waited, studied English literature, so she thought she will be fluent in those days I was not a writer, so she didn't have to read the literature, but she came prepared, not prepared. I never married her, so, but it never happened. And I still think of that what I did was not right, but it happened, and I got lost in America, and here I am, not marrying her. And then I lost my first wife. That's another story. And then I married again. I have 2 children, one from each woman. So I have a crazy life of love and loss and betrayal. But so I don't know if I answered your question. It's just my life is full of losses, and I think that's the only way to write. Think of your losses and think of what you want to do with. And I think writers need to have that. You don't have to keep on writing of your losses, but origin has, for me, is what's gone, and it somehow end up, even in a baseball stories about not only losing a game, but he is a no-hitter, but it's not a perfect game. He managed to walk 1 or 2, and there was one error that happened that he scored the run. So the game is a no-hitter. Walk is allowed, but it's not a perfect game. So even the baseball stories of loss and loss of whatever. So I don't know how it ended up. I mean, I remember the baseball story. I'm a fan of baseball, so I'm looking at a photograph that was in the paper, and the pitcher has wearing a baseball cap, and the visor is, and he's looking, and the story came to me a man looking further than he can see. That was happened to be the last. I mean, the story is the last game of this picture, and he has a family. A story is there, but anyway, so I had the ending of the story. The man looking further than he could see because of the the darkness on his eyes.
So I think baseball works as an American metaphor for you. I mean, it's the quintessential American experience.
Yeah.
Not that everybody has to play baseball or be a fan, but people who do try to understand America uh, often look at as a metaphor because it's so intrinsic to American culture. Uh, my question is that you arrived in America at a very quintessential time. The cusp of change, late 50s. The rock and roll is breaking out, and 60s are just about to start. It's just the America's about to explode. You do capture that in your first novel, as the main character meets Sabina. That's her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sabrina or Sabina, uh, and uh, and you are very drawn to the that that explosion of freedom, which is more or less in your stories. Uh, uh, Shadow sexual freedom, the sexual openness that people were uh, creating. Not I mean, it didn't really exist the same way before, uh, and it sort of reflects in your stories in many ways, except when the stories are about loss precisely. You want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, you lived in very interesting times in Chicago. But I mean, but it's also a time of protest.
Yeah.
And a lot of political upheaval, which I don't see too much in your stories. It's like under the surface, and so if you can talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that, how you balance, you know,
Okay, first thing about is that I grew up with American movies. I'm a big fan of movies. I still see at least one, sometimes two movies a week. And when I was growing up in Pakistan, and I would studying in high school, but in those days the medium of instruction was English because we were recently got the freedom from the British rule. So even in high school, I was reading science and math in English, not in Urdu. Since then, the books have been translated in science books. I think. So, and I was decent and thought I should become an engineer, and that was my first folly. I was not. I came to America, went to a small school, got a double E, and you have to design it was a heat treating furnaces, but not heat treating for the housing, but for the industry where you can heat treat it auto body, the entire body, the whole body is heat treated. And so it was a great job, and I was making good money. And in those days, the foreman it was also the design and manufactured according to if you're going to heat treat a bombshell or you're going to heat treat an airplane wing. All these things are heat treated. You should know. I know it because I used to. And so, where was I going with that?
well, the sexual freedom in the 60s.
Yeah.
That's what the focus.
So uh, when I went to school, there were the days of slide rule. I don't know if anybody know what the slide rule is. You calculate math complicated math, different, and then you'll get the right answer. You don't have to do with hand, and trigonometry is involved, calculus is involved, but it's all in one slide rule. So but I came to America thinking I'll just meet all the lovely women, and I was in engineering school. There were 2 women in the engineering school, and they were not the most attractive. And not only that, they didn't take any interest in me. I'll walk by them smiling, saying, "Hi, how are you?" And they just smile back, and sometimes won't even smile back. They just keep on walking because anyway. So nothing happened for years in Fort Wayne, Indiana, because I went to. But I got lucky when I went to Stillwater, Oklahoma. I went to university. There were tons of men and women going to school there, and there were big population of women, and they in those days had an exchange program with Pakistan, so I can meet lovely Pakistani women and flirt with them. And I have met American women, and that was much more to my liking, because Pakistani women won't even hold your hand. Even I don't know if they will hold your hand now, but in those days, nobody was holding hand. And I'm walking with them with my scarf, like they will notice me because I'm wearing a lovely scarf. I still wear the scarf for my neck and also to attract enough. So, but then I begin to feel America and the beauty of America, because sex aside, America is really a beautiful country. I mean, here I'm sitting with my friend Elizabeth McKenzie, and I have a few other women friends, and we're good friends. And my friend Susan Schechter, whom I met at a much later age, when I dropped out of engineering and went to school in psychology, and I met her in those days. And I was very attractive. We'll hold hands, and we may have made out once or twice. And she said, we can be friends. We don't have to have any sex. And I said, what do you mean friends? Why should I be friend? I'm attracted to you. And she said, yeah, I'm attracted to you too, but can be friends. And then I met my first wife, who died on me. She taught me the same thing, that you could be friend with women without always just wanting to get laid. So that was a good experience. I'm glad I have those kind of women, and that's only in America. And I think it could happen in Pakistan too, but in Pakistan, your flirtation is with your cousin. A lot of other women will not even talk to you. So the only woman you're going to attract and flirt with is your cousin, first cousins. Yeah, you can be
But
intimate.
it has changed a lot. It's a very different world now.
Okay, no, sorry. I'm
But it depends what area you live in, the class and all that.
Yeah, no. My father was a school teacher, and he was very liberal, but my mother was a religious person, and she would not allow any hanky-panky, any kind, if I mean, smile.
So I have another question. Lisa, you want to ask? Yeah, okay. So your writing style, the syntax, the grammar, the word choices, the crypticness, and its cyclical style is very unique. And I have edited your work, and it throws a challenge. You have to be very careful not to completely destroy its naturalness, its spirit, not try to fix it. Fix its grammar. Uh, how did that style emerge? Did you realize that you were creating something that's a little bit different from other mainstream writers, the writers you're influenced by? Is it? Did you think about it?
Well,
Did you ever look back to your writing
yeah.
and says,
No, I don't ever look back at my writing, but I find my writing very interesting, I must say. I cannot believe I wrote it, and what was the point? Where did it came? Like I said, that the pitcher died, I know where exactly. There's also another story in this collection, The Other Man, which is kind of a strange story. It's a man, uh, attraction of a man to this one woman, and he thought that something would happen, and they are at a bar together, and she went home with another man. You don't have to read the story. I'll tell you the whole story. It's a short story. and and then he thought something would happen at the end of this party, and she goes out with the other man, and something terrible happened to her. And the story ends that the blue-eyed blonde woman got busted, 2 ribs broken, and hospitalized, and it was the other man, not even. And so, what was the question, sir?
About your writing style. Like
Yeah,
how
so
did
writing
you-
style is, it's not a style. I used to read Earl Stanley Gardner, he's a mystery writer. I think no, Earl Stanley Gardner. He wrote he's a famous mystery writer. I mean, doesn't he wrote the Perry Mason? Yeah, right. So I started reading. My English love for English came from English movies. Then Earl Stanley Gardner's writing, but they were not influenced. I don't even know what I was just enjoying the reading. Then I came to America, and my first wife was a writing person, an editor, and she gave to read Margaret Drabble, Annie Tyler, and then for some reason I picked up John Fowles. Actually, she introduced it. He came out with a book called Megas that was crazy, and I still don't understand, but I read it twice, and even he himself re-edited it twice. So and it's a 500, 400-page book, and why the hell somebody would write that book and then rewrite and edit it, and because his name, he got republished. So, and when I read interviews and all that, and he would always talk about, he lived in Greece, and he was a strange character. I think he was very strange character, very strange. And I was crazy enough, I went to, Lyme Regis, and I wrote an essay about it. I stayed in a hotel. There was an article in Esquire magazine way back with Barbara Streisand on the cover of that issue. And inside there's an interview with John Fowles. You can still probably find it. I still have the copy of the magazine. And Hall, what's Hall, the poet, Hall, Robert Hall, yeah, Robert Hall, the poet, Donald Hall, yeah. Esquire magazine sent him to interview Fowles, and the interview started. He arrived in not Dublin, but whatever the city nearest big city is, and from there he rented a car, and he told, in those days, I think where he lived in Lyme Regis, and there was a very nice interview, and that's when I learned the concept of lost domain and all that. Fowles talk about it extensively. And I got so fascinated with Fowles. I have not kept up with it, but I read his early work in Ebony Tower, in French Lieutenant's Woman, in Daniel Martin, that nobody would read it. It's so slow, but but I begin to believe that that's what the writing comes from. So I never thought that I'll be a writer, but I start when I went to school for psychology and social work. We have to take the history of the patient and diagnose and all those crazy things. I have to learn to do testing and all that. And was forced to write other people's stories, what happened. And then I was keeping journal, and a lot of my writing, early writing, I stopped writing journal, but a lot of my writing came from my own journal. I just thought, oh, I can rework it as if it is a fiction. And that's why my writing is fiction, but it's not fiction. It's so. So I I I don't I don't know what my style is, but I did not go to writing school. I did go to briefly about a year or two at University of Chicago. In those days, they didn't have any kind of diploma in writing. Now they have a writing program, and you can get a 2-year diploma. But in my days, there was nothing. So I went to school, and the one thing the woman Mali Ramanujan taught was that nobody writes the story or a novel in one sitting. It's like her method was called clothesline. She said it's like laundry. You wash your laundry, you put one piece, then you next and next and next, and that's how the stories are created. So John Fowle says what's gone is the story, and Mali Ramanujan says it's simple. Just don't write the whole novel or story in one sitting or in one continuous sentence. And that helped me a lot. But I learned, and from then I read old-time writers. Malamud is a great person to learn to write. I mean, he's and Albert Camus. That was a very bad, sad loss. So I went to visit Fowles, and the Hall story says that John Fowle used to volunteer at the Lyme Regis Library, and there's only one main library, and he would go there 2 or 3 times a week, and given the day, he would go and volunteer at the library. So I thought, oh, I can go there and sit. So I went there day after day, 1 week. My wife and she could not believe, and my son, and my younger son, he was only 3 months old. And they said, they didn't want to, but they knew that I'm obsessed with John Fowles, and they have to go. Because I wanted to go, I said, we'll go to England, we'll have fun in England, but I want to go. So we arrived in Lyme Regis, and it's a small town. But I went there after the French lieutenant woman came out. It was made into movies, so I knew the town without being there. And then Hall's interview told me where to go, where he lived, in Bentley House, or whatever the house is. So I have all the information and know that he goes to this library. So I went there, and I would sit in a cafe across the street and wait for Fowle to come. And day one go, and he was not there. And I would go there first thing in the morning. I was in bed and breakfast place, have my breakfast, and I'll go and watch and see if Fowle would walk by so I can see him. And it went on, and we were only there for 1 week, and I said, it's not going to happen. It's just not a true story. But like in a story, last Thursday of that vacation, Friday, we were leaving town, and guess who walked in? And I ran out from the cafe I was sitting across the street and got there before the Fowle would get there. I opened the door, and he used to go on the 3rd floor, whatever the floor. and I was going to follow him. And then I opened the door. He just kind of nodded at me, and I let him go. And I thought, this is it. I don't have to go any further. I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of here. I came all the way from Chicago. But I wrote a short piece that got published. But so that's my fascination and craziness with John Fowles, and I felt the same way with Malamud, but I could never. I have another story about Malamud. My son's babysitter went to school in Vermont, where Malamud used to teach. What's that school? Bennington. Huh? Bennington. And so, Malamud, what happened there? Yeah, so she went to Bennington, this young woman. Her name was Shanti, and we thought that's why if we were going to have a son, my wife was pregnant, we thought we are going to name our daughter. I wanted a daughter, but happened to turn out to be a boy, so we have to name him Shan rather than Shanti. That's the closest you can come. So she said she was going to Bennington school. Malamud was teaching there, and she was babysitting. Not only once upon a time, she babysitted when she was in high school to my son. She was now babysitting Malamud. So my wife is the one who introduced me to Malamud. She said, could you ask him to sign my copy? And she brought it, and so many years later, I got a signed copy, but it's not for me, it's for my wife, who is no longer with us. So, yeah, so I have a Fowle story, and I have personally Malamud story. And those are.
Well, I was just going to go back to what you said about Syed's syntax that's unusual and the rhythm of your work. And I think you've told me you write to music often, right?
Yeah, always music is in the background.
Yeah. I just wondered about that.
Well, what happened is that, I used to love Indian music, and I still remember the verses one after the. But now I never listen to Indian music, and nothing personal. And I'm always Springsteen. Bruce is my favorite man. John Lennon was another of my heroes, and he was literally my hero. And Beatles and Rolling Stones, and the list goes on. So I grew up in '60s, and now I
grew up, but lived in America in the 60s.
Yeah, '60s. Not, I came here a young man, 19. So I really saw the best of America.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same. And I also got in '60s in Chicago was the crazy time to be a hippie or I don't know. I never thought I was a hippie, but when I appeared as an engineer wearing bell bottoms, my fellow engineers who were straight people, they said, "Look at him. What kind of pant he's wearing?" And he's trying to be an engineer, and I'm not an engineer anymore, thanks to.
That really comes across in the first novel, Yeah. Anybody has a question?
Yeah, sorry.
From the audience?
Okay, tiny question. So you wrote novels.
Mhm.
What made you want to write short stories? I'm a real fan of short stories.
Well, I was writing short stories before I wrote novels, and I happened to have an agent, and she tried to get. In those days, the agent would represent short stories, and I think if you're big and famous, they will still represent the short stories. But so I would send her, and she said, "Oh, Syed, I really love your writing, but nobody." And she tried to peddle my stories, Esquire and Atlantic and other big New Yorker. And they always said, "This is a very good story. It's a strange style of writing, but it would not work for us. So I never got published in Esquire or Atlantic. I have a rejection letter from them, not to me, to my agent, and that she will send me the rejection letter. They know they like your writing, but they're not publishing it. And she said, but novels are better. So then I thought, okay, I'll take a stab in writing novels. So novel came about, and she could not get them published. And thanks to Moazzam, I found a home. So it's I never thought I would be a writer. I was thought I'll be building bridges. Although I was studying electrical engineers, they don't build the bridges, and that was a false. But likes of it, and also it is better in the story. You that you're studying is science to build bridges in underdeveloped countries. So it was a good to write that thing, but no, I was not a building in the building bridges. If anything, yeah.
I think we should wrap this up. Thank you. Yeah, you have a question? Yeah.
So I think you're a great storyteller, Syed, and I was just wondering if you think that comes from your childhood and telling stories at home in Urdu, and like where you think that comes from.
I played cricket, and cricket is also a crazy game, and I was good. I played for my high school, and I was a good bowler, which is a different word. It's like pitcher, but it's an overarm and all that, and it just give me a we'll talk. We go to travel as a team to from different city. My high school was a decent, and they have enough money to take the team to different cities to play. So I was always away with friends, and I also I went to also college in Pakistan for a couple of years. So, and my uncle, my father's Taya, which is my father's older brother, he was a forester, worked in the forest, and his wife, who never went to school, and she was a great storyteller, teller, and my older sister would insist that she tell the stories. And I remember falling asleep listening to whatever story she was telling. I don't remember any of the stories she told, but if there is anything, that was. And then Malamud and Indian writer Narayan. And when I read Narayan, it is so, he does not waste time. He's simple, straight line writing, telling the story, the graduate BA or whatever it was. I still have some of his books. I mean, so that was helpful. And then when I started reading Fowles, although I was very slow, I'm still a very slow reader, but that Fowl guy really made an impression. I mean, I thought I have enough losses that I can also try to write. But it's not, nothing came as a plan. Actually, nothing happened in my life as planned. And that's very good to have. I mean, it's very sad story, but it's good to have those losses and craziness of life that is there if you want to look into it and explore and a way to write. But so that's how the writing came.
I think we should just rest you now. And thank you. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you.
And Syed will sign books if anybody is interested in.
I've heard that if you don't want to put your name, the book may sell better. If it is made to Moazzam Sheikh, it's not the right. It just should be signed. And don't ask the writer to say something good about or bad about the person that you don't even know. But I will try if you tell me something. And I'm also very lazy.
But if you had inscribed a book to John Lennon, it would
John Lennon was the man died too young. I mean, he said, could you believe that tragedy? All this, they were trying so hard. We didn't name our son Sean after his son because he struggled and we struggled to have the first child. And Shanti was going to be named the daughter, but then it came out to be Sean, and I have a son named Sean. And John Lennon has nothing to do with it, although I still cry for John Lennon. His music, love, his songs, oh man. Not only Beatles, that's another great group, but John himself is one of a kind. Well, he's not, he was. John.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
I need to hear about the beginning of the blind date story.
Oh, that's a good story. It's a very short story. One of the shortest stories.
You picked